What am I trying to read? What am I trying to read right now? Oh, the Scorpion. Okay.
Oh, that one's awesome.
Go for it.
Yeah. So, since the theme is myths, and I was pretty busy all week, and I didn't really have any other ideas, I am going to reread this thing that I wrote in July of 2020. It's called The Scorpion. It's based off of, I think I've read it to you both already, but it's based off of the fable of the Scorpion, which asks a frog for a ride across a river. And the idea behind it is that halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog, and it's like, whoa, you can't deny your nature.
You're spoiling your own story, Matt.
Dude, I'm not. Everybody knows that fable except for you.
I didn't know about it until he read it to me, then I found the original. Anyways, go on.
Okay, so, the Scorpion. The Scorpion asks a frog for a ride across the river. You have to promise not to sting me, the frog says. Of course, says the Scorpion. He hops on the frog's back, and halfway across the river, the Scorpion stings the frog. Why, asks the frog. I took out a life insurance policy on you 3 weeks ago, says the Scorpion. The frog dies. Fortunately, scorpions can hold their breath for 6 days, so he arrives at the other side of the river exhilarated. He and his girlfriend escape to the Caribbean, but their newfound wealth runs out within 2 years, and she leaves him for a lobster. The Scorpion misses the frog, but hates himself for constantly thinking about what he said was the worst day of his life. It was the last time he felt he could feel perfect trust. He returns to the river and decides to repeat the process to more and more frogs, always stinging them before they can betray him. One day he gets cocky and tries to do it to a brightly colored frog. In his last moments, the frog reveals to the Scorpion that he's a cop, and all of this was a ploy to catch him, which the police force called a sting operation. Isn't that funny? The frog asks. Isn't it? Isn't it funny? It is pretty clever, the Scorpion agrees. His ex-girlfriend collects the life insurance money 3 days later.
I love this story. I really fucking like it.
Great.
It's, I don't know, it's just so, I love your humor. It's very funny.
Thank you. It's very quirky.
It has that like realistic take, that kind of like dry delivery. Like it's basically like, this is real life, bitch.
This is my shot at an R-rated Pixar movie, so make sure you say only good things about it so that they can pick it up.
I was thinking of a way to make that joke without like you delivering it like shit. It wasn't really coming to me.
Wait, I've always had a question about this because you sent it to me in the form of a video, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I just kind of read it a few times. So that line about the Scorpion's like worst day of his life, the last time he could ever feel trust. Can you talk about that a bit? I don't really understand like what that means.
Yeah, let me read that. I think that's really my favorite part of this as well. The Scorpion misses the frog, but hates himself for constantly thinking about what he said was the worst day of his life. It was the last time he could feel perfect trust. The intent with the line is that this is just a moment where he permanently changed and he feels like he can't trust anybody anymore because of his own actions. So he kind of misses that moment and attaches that to missing the frog, and that's what motivates him later to try to recapture that, but also be so afraid that he'll be betrayed in turn that he's really fighting his own nature.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, I feel like another layer of that's in the story is like, you know, about how the Scorpion himself is betrayed by his girlfriend, you know, who takes the money and leaves him for a lobster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, you know, he himself was also betrayed in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, I guess, like the nature of give and take is that somebody will exploit you at some point if you are trying to exploit other people. I don't know.
With that kind of idea, it kind of turns the whole, at least the original nursery rhyme on its head, because it's kind of like going with your nature, and you know, you can't change your nature. It is what it is. But you know, he's kind of second guessing himself. He doesn't trust his nature anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I always like those kinds of twists and stuff like that. And you're always pretty good at just kind of dishing that kind of stuff out.
Thank you. I really rely on leading my life based on finding surface level irony. It's really funny.
I like that like little bit of like kind of cheesy humor with the whole sting operation, and I think you use some like a repetition in there a bit with like the frog. With like, you think that's funny, you think that's funny. I think it's kind of funny.
The frog just insisting on the cleverness of the name is really funny.
Yeah,
I just feel like that's the worst possible moment that you could have before dying. Somebody
Yeah.
really trying to show off how clever they are to you.
yeah.
Is there any significance to the cop frog being like poisonous and brightly colored?
Well, that's part of the trick.
What do you mean?
That's how they get him. He poisons him.
Oh, okay.
I think we should move on. I don't really have much to say about it.
It's a good
This
one,
was one that I wrote relatively, or quite recently. I wrote it like earlier this week because I didn't have anything that fits the theme of myth, and it kind of I felt really inspired watching this 2 hour long video about the dropping of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I don't know, it was kind of a rebuttal to the widely held American idea that dropping the atomic bomb was a necessary evil to end the war, and it completely deconstructs that argument and turns it into dust. And I just remember, like, it reminded me of a moment when I was in high school studying U.S. history, and this is something that I've experienced with other things too. I don't know, our teacher would tell us things, and then I'd grow up and realize that they're completely not true at all, you know? So it was just another of those moments, and it just can't. And this is where it gets cheesy, because this poem is about the myth of America. Yeah, fuck you, man.
Dude, you shot down my pitch for an episode about America.
I didn't do that. You shot it down yourself. You said that's too cheesy.
You did. That was on you. Read this shit. I am gaslighting you a little bit.
Okay, this is called extremely cheesily The Pursuit of Happiness. Tanners and Vanessas jerking off to wet dreams of yore. A starving person spray-painted gold in the 50s. Past generations reverberated echoes casting the shadows upon today. Today casting the shadows to tomorrow. Can you see the light beyond it all? What does it look like? Does it ever diffuse? Is it circular? Is it religious? Is it white? Is it screeching? Is it LED? It illuminates the hero. An extrajudicial baton neath a halo of clouded beams. A severed spinal cord, 6 bullets to the chest. The victim hidden above those very clouds, housing discrimination, sleeping skittles, a slap on the wrist, a rolling head. Organized gangs terrorizing the people, Daniels and Stacy's critically tweeting, misplaced priorities in terms of guilt, muckraking in the information age, black Google outlined in red, as was the golden age spray painted nothing more, quickly forgotten soon thereafter. After all, the dream is just that.
Holy shit.
Whoa.
Fucking awesome.
That was great. That was really good.
I first want to point out, I really like these kind of like three like nodes of the poem. Use a lot of kind of like modern internet terms and slang, which I really like. It kind of brings that modern twist to it, brings that relatability up. And then you kind of have this very I guess mystic, almost otherworldly take with it. Like you talk about all the lights and like the possibilities of these lights, and what it is. You talked about, I think it was like LED.
Yeah.
They used a few different examples. I really like that, like talking of like what is this light and kind of how I interpret it is like the end of the world necessary. I guess.
I really liked that too. I took that as the different shapes of the light as the different versions of the American dream or American idealism that different people hold.
Interesting.
And whether that's found in like a halo in religion or in an LED or transhumanism or whatever.
We were talking about this pretty recently, weren't we?
About what?
About 9/11 and just a lot of the bullshit in America. A lot of
I
the
think
many.
so.
I do remember, like, you called me earlier this week, and we talked about, like, 9/11 and everything surrounding it, how it's, like, some people, it's always the edgy teens that are, like, I sympathize with them because I do love me a good 9/11 joke, but it's also, like, the people that are like, oh, 9/11 wasn't a tragedy at all, but then also, like, most of America blowing it out of proportion and being like, oh, it's the worst thing to ever happen when the U.S. has done way worse things to other
Yeah,
countries for
the
basically every
Yeah,
month in the past 20 years.
it's
Like,
such a
genocides in Latin
holiday for
America.
Americans.
Yeah,
It's something that we all hold with such reverence. It's like a Christmas to us. It's the
Yeah.
anti-Christmas where we get to celebrate all the things that make us so delightfully American in the darkest way possible.
In I think it was 1978, on September 11th. This is the original day in infamy, and I can't really recall all the details, but America bombed a government building in Latin America because they elected fairly democratically a leader with socialist tendencies, which is kind of like in according to America and a bunch of fucking idiot socialism is like it's a certain breed of communism and it has to be destroyed. And so they bombed the shit out of this government building and raised a fascist dictator into power in this country. And I think it's really ridiculous that the day of infamy is 2001 9/11. Yeah, I thought I'd bring it up. I've just been really into like
Mm.
Latin American history lately. I've been taking classes
yeah,
on
I
it, stuff
know.
like
Like,
that. And
I
it's
really thought about writing something about America's fucked up foreign policy, but this was more focused on, like, happenings within America. So, like,
yeah,
Mm.
I guess the main idea I was going for is that the American dream isn't real, and it's just
yeah,
reserved for certain people at a certain time. Like, the only time the American dream was ever a real thing was, like, in the 50s with a huge asterisk on it that says, so long as you're not a woman, gay, black, or any other kind of minority in that way.
yeah,
The American
Like,
dream was plausible when we were all on like fairly equal socioeconomic footing. And that's never been plausible. That's never really happened, but it was close for like white Americans in the 50s. And so we've we've just reappropriated that to fit for not to fit but to justify everything that happens now. Now we have like vast income inequality, but because of the spirit of anybody can be anyone from an era long past where we were relatively debt free, it's just horribly malformed. It's not a good fit anymore, but we've attached it to the American identity, to the American dream, which you were kind of talking about.
the American scream.
yeah.
All of which are the American dream.
Dude, that's such a good fucking outro to the song.
It is.
Dilly, I love that. That's my favorite Rage song, Freedom. It's so good.
It's a great song.
Yeah, like there's this whole, like, you guys were talking about the light, and I was kind of like using that as a way to sort of like segue between, like, before that there was these couple lines, past generations reverberated echoes casting the shadows upon today, today casting the shadows to tomorrow. And then from there I talk to the light. So I guess it's like the light is sort of the source of these shadows being cast. You can't have shadows without a light source.
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, so it's like, there's a lot of different ways to read it. And I guess I don't really go specifically into like what it is, but I do mention like religion. Like I use like, the image of a halo later. And I also like specifically ask, is the light religious? And I ask, is it
Hmm.
circular? And circular goes in, it's kind of like, I guess that's sort of an allusion to like the cycle of violence because it's a circle. And then later I talk about like, I make pretty heavy-handed allusions to police violence like near the end of the poem.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And
It's
like,
okay. You don't have to obscure it.
yeah, I don't I didn't
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
really want to either. Like,
Good.
yeah.
I think that
Yeah,
information
this
is
is like a lot less cryptic, I guess, than most of the shit I write, and that was a concerted effort, I guess, because I don't know,
Mhm.
I
I
don't
think
I don't feel like that's appropriate for the subject matter.
a lot of the stuff that you did talk about really should just kind of be told outright, you know? At least that's kind of how I
Yeah,
see it.
like
Yeah.
there's these two lines, a severed spinal cord, 6 bullets to the chest, the victim hidden above those very clouds, housing discrimination, sleeping skittles. So like the thing with like the severed, I guess there's like the first line that's listing the severed spinal cord, the 6 bullets, and the chest, and then the second line talking about housing discrimination, sleep, and skittles. And that's like specifically referring to like um I forget his name, and that's shit because I really should
Trayvon
know his
Martin.
name. Yeah, no, Trayvon Martin is like one of the people, but it's like an allusions to like three specific victims of police violence.
Yeah.
One guy had like he had brain damage from like living in a shitty home that was painted with lead paint, which is like a really big problem in Baltimore. And
Yeah.
he died because like he was presumably beaten to death. There's no camera footage of it, but his spinal cord was severed, which put him into a coma, and then he died soon afterwards. Um, 6 bullets. Fuck, what's her name? Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
She was shot with 6 bullets while sleeping, and Trayvon Martin was shot in the chest. When George Zimmerman thought he was pulling a gun, but it was really just Skittles.
He didn't think he
Yeah,
was pulling a
Yeah.
gun.
he did not think he
Yeah.
was pulling. Yeah,
Did
It's
not think he
bullshit.
was pulling a
I
gun.
was I was
There's
gonna
photos
ask
of that
about
man signing Skittles.
God.
I was gonna ask about the Skittles part of it.
Yeah, that's what that's referring to. Is the Trayvon
Yeah.
Martin thing.
That's great. I really like
Yeah,
that
it's
one.
it's very dense. There's
It
a
is
lot.
very
I
dense.
kind of do want to go into it line by line, but fuck
Mhm.
it. I won't.
Maybe we
Definitely.
should start putting like all of the written works onto a website or something where
we should
we
we
can
should
break it
absolutely do
down.
that.
Yeah.
Throckmortonsdelusion.com.
It's all in your head. It's all in your head. It's
Throckmortonsdelusion.in.
all in your head.
Adultswim.com/Throckmortonsdelusion.
No, it's
Listen.
it's gotta be the URL Throckmortonsdelusion.on.
Let me inside.
It's all in your head.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, okay, Matt. Oh, sorry, George. It's your turn.
Shit. Okay. So
Shit. All right.
my myth very a lot more like fantastical, but pretty dark. I've been writing a series of short stories, and in between I finished one of them earlier this week, and in between starting the next short story, I really stopped and took some time to think about, I guess, the conception of the universe that my short story takes place in, because it's really about um, this kind of peculiar world. And there's a lot of things that I kind of like alluded to in my stories that I thought would make for like an interesting creation story. So I created this poem called "The Book of Feasts: How the First Scholars Breastfed an Infant God." And it's a little bit grim, but I still think it's kind of interesting. So before Progmathul, there are thrashers, aimless and without essentia, unblinking, unseeing. They were useless, useless until a disturbance. One pale thrasher held its head in something unlike ever experienced. Pain, suffering. After aeons, its hand was attached to its head, much like its neck. The mind, the creator, the scaffold. The circle that became the universe. The circle that birthed Progmathul, the first idol. The thrasher pleaded to the god in screams and wails. It wished not to suffer, but the infant fumbled onto its knees and crawled away seeking nourishment. And the idol wept, for it had none. The first pleads, the first tears, the desires of man and God culminated into an abyssal node, reaching out into something more Stygian than the beginning of all. And from the abyssal node came the first scholars and their book of feasts. While Progmathul sucked from the teat of all, the thrasher still held its head, attempting to weep like its god.
That's fucking intense.
It's a bit macabre. I've been trying not to write really like dark macabre things for this, but they just come out.
I'm still thinking it through. I love your emphasis on world building. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of the writing you do before character, before really anything, it's about fleshing out these dense worlds that the ideas flow through. I feel like it's a very complex but understandable delivery of message
Thank
by
you.
just having the world itself be the intent.
Yeah, that's with these short stories. It's really to kind of showcase this idea of a world, and so I thought this poem would kind of fit into that theme, and as well as myth because it is a creation story
Mm-hmm.
of the
It's
world.
cool. It really explains. I think what I really, really like about a lot of old myths and creation stories is how they're very clear, like understandable concepts that we have a fairly full understanding of today, or at least plausible explanations. And watching old societies and civilizations try to create that meaning with limited tools is fascinating. And it's just a great testament to human ingenuity. And the fact that you're able to replicate that seemingly like really faithfully is always really interesting to me. And I
It's
guess I see this as like the inception of pain from some ancient civilization's mind of it.
it's to them the first ever feelings were pain, pleading, begging, and ignorance, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like you have other pieces of writing that you've showed me that mention thrashers, and I guess like I've always kind of wondered what they were. So this kind of like gives like a nugget, I guess, of like lore behind them, where it's like they're like these primordial, or I guess the implication that I'm picking up on is that they're these kind of like primordial creatures that predate feeling or emotion itself.
Yeah,
Like that line at the end about the thrasher like trying to emulate pain and failing to do so is something
yeah,
that's really harrowing to me.
yeah. No, I write about thrashers a lot. I don't know what it is about them, but I really like these hopeless husks that are almost completely useless, but have been around before time itself, with no seeming, no meaning almost. And I guess one kind of was given a meaning, but instantly brushed aside once it conceived a god.
It kind of reminds me of like the lore in like the first Dark Souls game about how
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say.
yeah, like before the first Age of Fire, before man, before pygmies, there were just these stone dragons that just shitted around doing nothing, and then
Yeah,
suddenly fire happened, and that changed everything. And I don't know, it it's just this like I guess like world changing event. I guess it also is like Berserk in that way. So, like yeah, the whole like
yeah.
world building thing you do like reminds me a lot of Berserk. Even though I don't think you've read Berserk, have you?
I've read a bit of it. I'm not up to the point like where it's at now. I've seen a lot of the art, which really impresses me, and it's just fucking awesome looking.
It's unbelievable. Like the guy that drew Berserk, I forget his name, but the guy that drew and wrote it, like he's been like a published mangaka since the age of fucking 10. It's unbelievable.
It's
Oh,
insane.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
That's his greatest addition to mankind was Berserk, the ancient transcripts.
Fucking awesome. Yeah.
I really like that story. I really like it. Just a short
Berserk.
explanation. No, yours. I,
Thank you.
just the human beings starting out as just bodies without souls, and then souls without passion. It feels like some sort of ancient civilization that might have lived on the mountains or in fjords where life was just so brutal that they had to explain pain and suffering before anything else.
Yeah. It's
I'm really reminded of I think like freshman year, my history class, we examined different societies and their religions that they had formed and compared the Fertile Crescent, where life was bountiful, farming was super easy, it was relatively undisturbed, with their like very gracious and polite gods, versus some other society where the rivers would flood constantly and destroy homes, who had these wrathful and angry gods, kind of like the Greeks or the Norse, I suppose.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest like the two biggest inspirations for me with mythology. Actually three. I've been using a lot of like Greek, Norse, and a lot of African mythos and religion to create these stories. And then I've also taken a lot of inspiration of a lot of the worshippers in my stories are like very somewhat pagan, and it's really fun taking from all these cultures, you know, seeing how they all differ. And I found a lot of joy combining it and seeing what I can create.
So it's all in your head.
It's all in your head. It's all in your head.
Is that- is that a
It's
new
all in
It's
your
all
head.
in your head.
It's all in your head. It's all in your head. It's all in your head.
That's
All right.
Throckmorton's Delusion. It's all in your head.
It's all in your head. It's all in